know that for the last week, as everybody's been freaking out about higher oil prices, I've hardly heard anyone mention what could be the largest oil discovery in a generation. Perhaps one that happened in a third world tin pot dictatorship, maybe? What do you think? Wait, no! One that's right here on American soil, specifically North Dakota and Montana. North Dakota and Montana. You heard me right. The biggest oil find anywhere in a generation. And definitely the largest find in all of American history. Now, wouldn't you think this would make huge headlines? Puzzling, isn't it? Especially now that energy independence is top of mind with the Libyan powder keg situation. It's fossil fuels. I guess we don't care, right? You'd assume people would treat finding all that oil like it's a big deal, right? Hardly. I didn't even realize it had happened until I was reading through the Oil and Gas Journal last week, because I have no personal life, and that's what I do with my free time. See, I was reading this journal, and I came across what many regard as just one more humdrum article about another U.S. shale play. To me, though, it was pure excitement. Which shale? B-A-K-K-E-N. Bakken. You see, it turns out that the potential oil recovery numbers at the Bakken are much larger than anyone has ever imagined. Again, the largest in this country's history. This is huge. It is earth-shattering. So I gotta wonder, why the heck did I have to read about it in a darn trade publication instead of, say, the front page of the New York Times? Get this. According to Continental Resources, which is among the largest producers in the Bakken shale, the ultimate recovery from the overall play is now estimated to come to 24 billion barrels of oil. We need some context here. Total U.S. oil reserves, 20 billion barrels. Okay? So this find more than doubles the amount of oil we have in this country. Where I'm from, that's news. Where the heck does all this oil come from? The 24 billion barrel figure is 5 times the U.S. Geological Survey's 2008 estimate, nearly 160 times what the survey expected from the Bakken in the mid-1990s. How can we explain this disparity? The reason for the increase is simple. American technology. The technology for extracting crude out of the ground has improved dramatically, making it economical to drill for far larger amounts of oil than it used to be. Now, right now, because we just got the technology, production at the Bakken is about 400,000 barrels a day. Not much, right? But they're drilling like mad out there. 165 rigs operating. So those figures could reach 1 million barrels a day within a very short time. 1 million barrels a day? And this isn't Saudi Arabia we're talking about. It's Montana and North Dakota, for heaven's sake. Pretty safe terra firma, where I'm from. Forget that all of this Bakken shale oil should totally change the way we think about energy independence for a second. Forget about what it would mean to our trade deficit, given that we import so much foreign oil. Right now, the Bakken is a rocket, and we got to try to make some mad money off it. So what are the plays? First, let's talk about the company that discovered the Bakken in the first place, way back in 1953. I'm talking about Hess. You know, it was like Amerada Hess those days. It was like AHC. This is a stock I like so much that my charitable trust owns at actionlearnersplus.com. I'm a fan of Hess, H-E-S, because it's the big integrated oil company that's most levered to higher oil prices. Now, Hess owns 900,000 acres in the Bakken shale and plans to invest $1.8 billion over what period? How about 2011 alone? They bought American Oil and Gas back in July and Bakken acreage from TRZ Energy in November. They're believers. Why? They wanted to consolidate their acreage in the region. Of course, Hess is a large oil company, diverse asset base, operations spanning multiple continents. But the Bakken is a big enough part of their business to move their needle. Next up, we saw this last week. It should have been the headline. EOG Resources was up big. Why? It's one of the largest producers in the Bakken shale, and it talked about it on its earnings call. That said, it's another large cap company like Hess, and they're also in the Eagle Ford shale and the Niobrara shale. That was where Chesapeake sold some to CNOC. EOG has 600,000 net acres in the Williston Basin, which includes the Bakken and Three Forks shale. This year, they plan to run 10 rigs, drill 100 new horizontal wells in the region. A week ago, EOG reported a terrific quarter, and that showed the company's efforts to increase this oil production gaining traction, and the stock soared. although it did pull back yesterday, down 4 points. Now, if you want a larger producer, though, I'd stick with Hess. Safer, right, because more diversified. EOG also has too much natural gas exposure. I know what you want. You're saying, okay, listen, let's cut to the chase. Let's give me a pure play. All right, that's that Continental Resources I mentioned, CLR. It owns more than 855,000 acres in the Bakken and Three Forks area, with the Bakken representing 47% of Continental's total production in the fourth quarter. They also have exposure to the Woodford Shale in Oklahoma, but the Bakken is their main growth engine. Second, here's one you've called me on the lightning round. It's called Whiting Petroleum, WLL. 580,000 net acres in the Bakken, and is still adding to that position. 74% of their budget is for 2011 is directed at the Bakken and Three Forks area, where these are all adjoining nearby. The company reported solid operational results on Wednesday, though volume guidance was down, but they blame the weather. I'm willing to believe it. And then there's one that we've been getting calls on left and right. It's called Brigham Oil and Gas. You'll know it because the symbol's BEXP, and that's historically focused on the Gulf Coast, West Texas, and the Anadarko Basin. But that's not what people are calling about. They're talking about the 370,000 acres in the Williston Basin, where the Bakken Shale is located, at early stages of development. They reported yesterday, delivered 272% year-over-year increase in production in the Bakken area. Is that not what we want to hear? Finally, how about this one? It's up a lot, but it's called Oasis Petroleum, OAS. Came public last June. No one cared about it because people didn't know about the Bakken. It's 100% Bakken, 300,000 net acres. I think the one makes an intriguing speculation. Bottom line, the Bakken is a rocket with enough potential oil to more than double our nation's reserves. Best way to play it? You can own something big like a Hess or an EOG. Go with a smaller company that's more levered to the Bakken like Continental, Whiting, Brigham Oil and Gas, or Oasis. Stay tuned. I'll talk to you about some of the indirect ways to invest in this huge oil discovery. Oh, Mr. President, Congress, why don't you go out to North Dakota, see what I'm talking about? After the break, I'll try to make more money. I'm excited about tonight because tonight we're talking about the most important oil find you've possibly never heard of. It's called the Bakken Shale in Montana, North Dakota. It's the largest oil discovery in the last 30 or 40 years, where there could be enough crude to more than double our total oil reserves here in the United States. You heard me correctly. I gotta, like, press the hallelujah button because this is a double of what we've got. There could be more oil in one place than in the whole rest of the country put together. I just went over the direct plays on Bakken, exploration production companies that find and extract oil. But with something this big, there are a lot of indirect ways to profit that don't necessarily come to mind when you think exposure to the Bakken Shale. That's our job when we have money. Oil service companies, drillers, the guys who make it all happen, we know how to spot them. And right now, I'm going to take a closer look at 4 of them for you. First, let me introduce you to a stock that was trading like mad today. I do not know why, okay? It's called Northern Oil and Gas, NOG. You can think of this company as an ETF-like vehicle for the oil and gas exploration production plays. It owns interest in many wells, but it's not an operator. Basically, NOG buys into acreage and participates in the oil wells, but they don't do any of their own drilling. As the analyst who covers the stock for Canaccord put it, they're focused on unconventional oil in an unconventional way. I think this is an intriguing low-cost business model. Northern Oil and Gas contributes money to many different exploration and production companies, and its partners, companies like the EOG and Continental Resources I just mentioned, they do all the hard work of finding and extracting the actual oil. NOG controls 120,000 net acres in the Bakken and Three Forks area. It's some of the best acreage in the region. Plus, the value of their acreage keeps increasing as each new well drilled seems to be better than the last. American technology. Next, there are the oil service names, the companies that help get the stuff out of the ground. Shale plays like the Bakken, they're among the most service-intensive regions out there because they use this special kind of technology. It's called high-tech process hydraulic fracturing to get at the oil. Fracking, you may have heard the slang. Right now, since the Bakken is still in the early phases of development, I think the best positioned oil service stock for this kind of drilling is a real big player that I like since the start of the show, called Halliburton, HAL. That's the dominant North American oil service company. Roughly 40% of its revenues from pressure pumping. That service is related to this special kind of drilling. According to management at a recent gathering of the company's top customers, every single one of them was asking for 2 or 3 more frac spreads, the equipment needed to perform hydraulic hydraulic fracturing. In other words, right now the demand is so huge that Hal simply can't meet it. Don't you love that? How many companies do you have in your portfolio like that? All of their equipment's tied up through 2012. Right now, the Bakken Shale, along with this Eagle Ford that we talk about, are two of the most service-intensive areas out there. Places where Halliburton is now working consistently, get this, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As more and more exploration production companies make the switch from drilling for gas to drilling for oil, as we heard last night from Sandridge, see that stock today? This is a theme I've often talked about. Halliburton's the big winner. Not only is there more demand for their services thanks to the switch, but the barriers to entry at this stage of development are much higher for oil than in dry gas basins. Plus, Hal is an expert at early-stage exploration services, American technology. They've patented technologies for completion fluids that work better than water-based alternatives. They have the right sand. That's something that's actually very critical to drilling in liquids plays, and they have an enormous amount of experience. Outside of North America, Halliburton doesn't get a huge amount of revenue from North Africa, so you're not worried about this with Hal. And it is a first mover in Iraq, and they have tremendous upside potential there. How about the drillers? We know the Bakken is growing very rapidly, along with the other oil shale plays, something that's pushing the oil rig count much higher, down a little this week, but it's way elevated versus where it should be, based on the price of natural gas. This is great news for land drillers. The best position in the Bakken, an old favorite, then we soured on because it just didn't do well. I think it's back. It's called Neighbors, NBR. It's the world's largest onshore drilling contractor. This is the key play in the Bakken. They have 33 rigs, 28% market share. Pure play, as close as you're going to get it. Neighbors also owns pressure pumping trucks, gives them more exposure to hydraulic fracturing. Again, huge part of the drilling process in all these shale plays. Plus, the company's latest quarter was excellent. 7-cent earnings beat off of 37 basis. And Neighbors predicted earnings per share growth of 50 to 60% in 2011. I'll take it. Finally, we want a ceramic play. What the heck does ceramics have to do with oil? All right. Hydraulic fracturing uses a combination of liquids, chemicals, and ceramics. They crack the rock, and ceramics are pushed in to fill the gaps so that the oil can seep out of the crack. That's why I like Carbo Ceramics, CRR. The world's largest supplier of ceramic propane. These are the pellets used to increase productivity in oil and gas. This is the best of breed ceramics play. Carbo also has the most exposure to the Bakken Shale, 40% of its business. The most recent quarter was terrific. This one I would buy. The bottom line, there's more than one way to make money off a huge oil discovery like the Bakken Shale. You can go with a non-operator like Northern Oil and Gas, NOG. Best positioned oil service name that's certainly diversified, HAL. And then there's Neighbors, which, like I said, big company, but a lot of exposure there, and Carbo Ceramics. I believe they're all going to make a killing off the Bakken. Remember, it doesn't bubble up like the Texas spindle tops. That's why no one's ever heard of the thing. It seeps. Wayne in Florida. Wayne.
Jimmy, quick and to the point, El Paso. I know it's up fast in the past few months. Is it a buy right now?
Yes, it's a buy. I'm giving you a fast one right back at you. I've been looking this is a company that I've been working on to do on the show, do a segment on. I think it's a real good one. I need Matt in Connecticut. Matt.